What if I told you the loneliest people you've ever met might secretly be the strongest ones in the room? No friends, no group chats, no weekend plans, and yet something strange happens to them. But before you judge them or feel sorry for them, wait. Because by the end of this video, your entire idea of having no friends is going to flip upside down. And the last reason? It's the one nobody talks about because it's uncomfortable. But let's start with something small. Ever notice how society treats people with no friends like a red flag? Like, why are you alone? What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Sounds innocent. But here's the weird part. Some of the most confident, creative, and mentally tough people on Earth spent long periods with zero friends. That sounds impossible, right? Well, hold that thought because the first reason people end up friendless is way darker than you think, and it starts early. A lot of people with no friends didn't choose it, they adapted to it. Maybe they were the quiet kid. Maybe they moved schools a lot. Maybe they got betrayed once and their brain said, "Cool, never doing that again." Here's the shocking part. Your brain doesn't forget emotional pain. It remembers it forever. So when friendship equals rejection, drama, or feeling invisible, the brain does something wild. It shuts the door. Not because you hate people, but because your mind is protecting you. But that protection has a cost, and that cost shows up in a very unexpected way. People with no friends don't usually feel lonely all the time. They feel numb, and that's way scarier, because loneliness hurts, but numbness, it's silent. And when you're numb long enough, something strange starts happening inside your head. You begin hearing a voice no one else hears, and that voice becomes your best friend, or your worst enemy. Let me explain. When you're alone a lot, your inner dialogue gets louder. At first, it's helpful. You think more, you analyze more, you understand yourself deeply. But then it starts questioning everything. Am I boring? Would anyone miss me? Is something wrong with me? Here's the twist. That same inner voice that breaks some people turns others into monsters of self-growth. And the difference between the two? One decision. But before I tell you what that decision is, there's something else people with no friends experience that nobody prepares you for. It's awkward, painful, and kind of funny. You know that moment when you open your phone, scroll through messages, and there's nothing? No hey, no where are you, no missed calls, just silence. At first, it feels peaceful. Then it feels weird. Then it hits. But what happens next is the part nobody talks about, because that silence does something powerful to the human brain. Silence forces honesty. When no one distracts you, validates you, or mirrors you, you meet the raw version of yourself. No filters, no masks, no personality built to impress, and that's terrifying. Most people never meet themselves. They hide in noise. But people with no friends, they don't get that luxury. And here's the surprising result. They either collapse or they build an unshakable identity. Which one happens depends on something very specific, and it's not confidence. Let's talk about the myth. People with no friends think are antisocial, awkward, or bad with people. That's usually false. In reality, many of them are too aware. They notice fake laughs, forced conversations, energy drains, and once you see that, you can't unsee it. But that awareness comes with a hidden side effect, one that quietly pushes people away. People with no friends often raise their standards without realizing it. Not on purpose, they just stop tolerating nonsense. Small talk feels pointless, fake vibes feel exhausting, drama feels stupid, so they choose peace over people. But here's the catch. Isolation can slowly turn into a comfort zone, and comfort zones are dangerous because they feel safe right before they trap you. Which brings us to the most misunderstood part of having no friends. What if I told you having no friends can actually make you powerful? Not motivational poster powerful, real world powerful, but only if you avoid one massive mistake most people make. And that mistake feels logical until it ruins years of your life. Alone time creates focus. No distractions, no peer pressure, no emotional chaos. That's why so many creators, thinkers, and builders go through lonely phases. But the mistake, they confuse isolation with independence. Independence says, I can stand alone. Isolation says, I don't need anyone. One builds strength, the other builds walls. And walls feel strong until you realize you're stuck behind them. So how do you tell the difference? There's a simple sign. Ask yourself this: do you avoid people, or do you just not find your people? That answer changes everything, because not having friends isn't always a problem. Sometimes it's a transition, and transitions are uncomfortable but necessary. And this is where things get emotional. Most people with no friends are in between versions of themselves. They outgrew old connections, but haven't met new ones yet. It feels like being socially homeless. You don't belong where you were. You don't belong where you're going. So you're alone in the middle, and that hurts. But here's the truth nobody says out loud. This phase often comes right before massive personal change, and the people who survive it come out different. But let's address the scary question: will I be alone forever? That thought creeps in at night, when distractions are gone, when the room is quiet. And the answer isn't what you expect. Being friendless doesn't mean you're unlovable. It usually means you're becoming more selective. And selectiveness feels like loneliness until the right connection appears. Here's the irony. The people who suffer most from having no friends are often the ones who would make the best friends. They listen deeply. They value loyalty. They don't waste connection. They just haven't met someone who matches that depth yet. And that brings us to the final truth. What if this lonely chapter isn't a flaw, but a filter? What if life is removing noise so you can hear what actually matters? Because people with no friends don't lack something, they're being shaped, and shaping hurts. But when it's done, they don't chase connection, they attract it, and that is when everything changes. So, if you're watching this alone, feeling forgotten, wondering if something's wrong with you, there isn't. You're just early in a story that hasn't revealed its best characters yet. And trust me, they're coming.